William Sparrow from the college hour. We have here Dr. Cavil. How you doing, bro?
Doing well,
Good to see you again.
Definitely, thank you.
So what do you think of the SWAC conference so far?
I think the tournament has been really good
Okay.
in terms of the play and action on the field. Some of them are trying to get used to playing in this professional arena with being so big, so I think some of the shooting has been off, both on the free throw line and the overall three-point field goal percentage when you look at it. I think that could be played, but in terms of the intensity of how they play, the players, the coaches in terms of coming here and the seriousness and appreciation that taking it, I think they've done a wonderful job for the fans to really get into this and cheer about what's going on in the SWAC.
And now you are especially in sports information management.
Yes, I'm a professor at Texas Southern University. Also do this in terms of a business venture on the side where I do some consulting in terms of the business side of sports. I teach it as a full-time professor with students that are earning a Bachelor's of Science in Sport Management at Texas Southern University right here in Houston, Texas. That program started in 2010. Very excited about where that program is going. Looking forward to moving in serious consideration of a master's program, and ultimately would like to be the first historically black college and university, HBCU, with a doctoral program in sport management with the emphasis of the African American community focused so much on sports. We don't want to just be those in terms of playing the game. We also want to know that people can manage, as you doing, work on the media side, as you're doing a great service to all those that want to get information for SWAC, African Americans in general. And finally, we want to make sure people know that we can put them in positions to get into the mid-management level, hopefully at some point into the executive level, whether that's within the SWAC in terms of athletic directors, associate athletic directors on the APR issue side, compliance, all the way on the marketing side, all the way up to the commissioner side, both within the SWAC, MEAC, HBCUs, SIAC, CIAA, now the all historically black college representing the Gulf Coast Atlantic Conference out of the NIA programs, as well as those that want to veer off and go into some of the more branded programs in terms of Big 12, SEC, get the feet wet in that, and go all the way up to hopefully the professional level right here in Toyota. Some people working at Houston Rockets. We have a student that's doing some internships here now that has parlayed that into the next level of trying to move up the business thing. So we want to be all over the place: Houston, Texas, Dallas Cowboys, Washington Redskins, anywhere that they will have us. And ultimately, we like to be around the world. Soccer is a big-time program with the World Cup coming up this summer. We want to be in that as well. South America, Europe, Africa. We want to be all over the place.
Okay. And since pair of you ladies won the championship today, give the people a little bit of your educational background, since I know you're a pair of you, man.
Definitely. Yeah, I get in a little trouble about that.
I was gonna hold off a little bit, but I was like, I gotta let's go ahead.
You know, like I tell them, I say, I'm a highly trained professional. I do this for a living, so I understand those questions. Undergraduate degree is at Prairie View A&M University, proud graduate, producing productive people is what we say, and I believe I'm in the line with all the other historic people that have done it. So I'm trying to carry my wing and have that hand that reaches back and bring up the next group. I've done a Bachelor of Science there in mechanical engineer. I did that trade for about 10 years, decided to move on, go back to school, did a master's where I started with applied mathematics with scientific computation. I finished that master's at Prairie View on the educational side in terms of a master's, and then I did a master's at Texas Southern, a business degree, as well as a master's in physical education, human performance, with that concentration in sports management. And finally, I ended up with my doctorate at Texas Southern University, so I'm an alum of both schools. So everybody asks, I say, I cannot lose at this tournament here. It doesn't matter what happens, I'm a winner. And I mean that on and off the court, as people would say. But I did my final degree, terminal degree, at Texas Southern University with a education administration doctorate in supervision and leadership, and that's kind of what took me in this area of where I am. I also have where I did postgraduate studies at Sam Houston State, concentrating more on the sport management arena, and that's where I kind of decided to build and got to the point where I'm now. I'm a professor at Texas Southern, assistant professor there, traveling, presenting research papers on historically black colleges, as well as doing media things that will give our students that opportunity in terms of their internships to go right out of school into a program that they like.
You know me, I could talk to you all day, but
Thank you.
we don't have all day.
I understand.
Yeah, but I'm gonna cut through the chase and let's get to right down to the meat of the conversation. You and I collaborated on a paper we just did not too long ago about top tier high school athletes not looking at HBCUs and the economic impact that it has, not only the community but also the institutions. I'd like to hear what you got to say about that.
I think it's threefold. It's huge in terms of what's going on in terms of the economic impact when you look at the fact of the African American community and some of these talented athletes going to these larger predominantly or historically white colleges and universities. At one time, they didn't let them in. So we're not saying, or at least in my side, is that should be your only choice for HBCUs, but there are a lot of things that we overlook when this opportunity becomes at these players. One is in terms of graduation rate. If you're going to go there, I would really like to see that you had an opportunity to graduate, which means it's going to parlay into other opportunities of being able to hopefully work at these institutions as associate athletic directors, coaches, all the way up to the defensive, offensive coordinators. Ultimately, what we've kind of started to see a little bit now is also in terms of head coaching positions, which have been far in between in the past. But we want to go all the way up to associate athletic directors, ADs. So the first thing is you have to graduate, because we already know in terms of playing in the league, you're talking about a less than 1% that plays in there, 3% overall when you take all the sports coming out there. So you're talking about, almost playing the lottery when you look at it. So it's not saying don't chase your dreams and go after what you want, but you have to be very clear that there should be a secondary opportunity. There are other studies that talk about the fact that even those folks that are successful, that have played in the professional leagues for multiple years, there's a study that recently came out and said those that have played 2 or 3 years after they have left those professional careers, that 75+% of them are broke. So what does it do you all that time to have all that money and then you become broke? Because what people don't realize oftentimes is when you look back at the community, it's the community that is depraved of that economic value in terms of making sure there's an underswell to develop that community. And those are some of the things that have been lost when we went to desegregation. Some people call it integration. I like to look at it as assimilation, because integration is the change of information back and forth, or people back and forth, which is a great thing when you really look at it. But obviously what took place was assimilation of the great minds, both academically and athletically, if you would, that went into these historically white institutions. So they're getting all the financial benefits of that. And then you have this thing called deprivation. There's a professor that is working on his doctorate at Texas A&M University that did his undergraduate at FAMU out of the Houston area, where his concentration is looking at the deprivation of HBCUs. So we have a cadre of new professors that are coming out that are seriously looking at this in terms of not just covering this from a sports and athletic perspective, but also looking at sports in terms of management, business, and research, and so we can find some of these issues that are facing HBCUs such that we can leverage them in such a way that we're not just asking for handouts. We're saying this is what we're studying. We understand this is what's taking place, but these are some of the ideas of how we can rectify the situation where it becomes a win-win for all involved, not just one side of the table.
Now, I had an interview with James Jones, a graduate of Grambling, just went into the Hall of Fame in the Southwest Athletic Conference. He feels as though, now James, don't shoot me now, but James says he doesn't feel that HBCUs can really attract the top tier athletes because of economics, and their historically white colleges now have not only the money, but they have the venues. They got the rights, the television rights, and these athletes today really don't have no kind of, I'm not going to say consciousness, but no kind of responsibility to the community.
And part of that was us
to themselves.
Doing that. I think I do not like to use the word can't, just because it's a roadblock, but I understand what he's generally speaking about, and there's a lot of research. And I would say to him, which is essentially what he's saying, that it's definitely going to be really difficult. But just because something is difficult doesn't mean that you put on whatever's necessary to change things in some type of direction and move the scales where it's more balanced. And to me, that's what we're talking about. We understand that there are some great educational institutions out there, some institutions that have great facilities, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. But where it becomes difficult when you see this unbalance and it's based off the back of individuals that look differently from all those that are getting the benefit of it. And so that's some of the difficulties, and we're talking about financial gains. And that really deprives the economic community, and you'll hear me go back to that point, because we have a lot of problems in terms of urban areas with miseducation, drugs, arrest, and things of that nature. And I don't think people have really taken the time to understand what is the connection between the two.
Right.
So if we're gonna become a better America, a better world, we have to find a way to balance this and make sure that things are more of a level playing field. And that's some of the difficulties when you come with the history of America in terms of a capitalistic society and a democratic
Right,
society. There's some great things that happen with that, but there are also some concerns when you have everybody just looking for their own benefit in terms of the wealthiest looking to capitalize on
right,
all
I
that.
understand. But I mean, I guess what you're saying is the prime example would be Grambling University right now,
Absolutely.
where the state in 2007 they had 31.2 million going to funding for Grambling. And in 2012 they only got 12.3 million.
Right.
20 million just out of the air.
Right.
Now
And a lot of that
scrambling.
is based on decisions that legislative and governors make in terms of where they're gonna fund and put this pile of money.
Right.
It is a conscious decision they make, and a lot of times, we really don't focus on a few individuals making those difficult decisions, but making it in such a way that it doesn't leverage the playing field, and then they come back and disproportionately find out why you have individuals that are not able to survive, and you have this negative ripple effect. So it is across the board. So we're just making sure that all the information gets out there such that people can make wise decisions
Right.
and not just let a small group of people tell things from a small angle that best suits what they're looking at. So that's really my point of contention when we look at these difficult issues. So I'd like to say you're perfectly right when you make that reference and let people educate and know that, yes, Grambling has some bad things going on. Yes, this is unfortunate. And yes, they need to be focused on what they can do right, but we also need to make sure we do the background research to
On the right,
find out why some of
somebody.
these happens, that not everything is internal. Some things are external forces as well.
But me, I'm a firm believer in, okay, that's a cause and effect, but there also is a reaction that the community has to come in and react to this and help out some kind of way. And I don't, be honest with you, I don't see that. So how can we mobilize our
Correct.
community to help Grambling out or TSU out? Because all HBCUs are really hurting right now. I
Right,
mean,
and that's
the
a
community
learn-
doesn't know it, but they are really hurting.
Right, and that's a learned environment. You have to teach that. You have to teach giving. And that's one thing when I talk about Texas A&M and some of the big institutions that are doing well at that. They've understood for a long time now, and some of our greatest bastions of educational institutions, when you look at the Ivy League schools, they've done it for the longest in terms of Harvards and Yales, in terms of understanding that you have to teach this art of giving back and the importance of taking care of your own, whatever that own is, whether it's your neighborhood, whether it's your institution, whether it's an organization, whether it's a state, whether it's the United States
Right.
of America in terms of that, whether it's North America, whether it's globalization. You take those on each level and you have to teach people that this is the value of that. So we have to do a better job of making sure that we reach back and teach that you're doing what you're doing in terms of making sure that this conversation exists.
Right.
So we come back. I'm doing this in the classroom. One particular class that I made sure was developed at Texas Southern University that is slightly different to a lot of programs that have a sport management program. We actually have a class that students take that looks at the African diaspora, meaning black people all across the world,
right.
as well as a segment that looks at the history of SWAC and HBCU sports. Once you understand your history, there is a greater appreciation of where you're going and what you need to do to make sure you do your part of doing it out in the field, and then also making sure you come back and develop those that come after you. We haven't done a great job of that. And part of that, again, is American society that looks at capitalistic individualism, which has changed over the years for our community. And we need to make sure that we're telling people it's fine, make sure you go and get your wealth. You can earn as much as you want. You should do that. But make sure that you don't forget that people in the past have made strides to help you get to where you're going. And you need to make sure in some way that you come back and put that hand back to help the next generation.
So integration, it has since 1964, since President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill, and we now can do whatever we want or go wherever we want to go what school we want to go to. The history, as it seems as it is now, how it's been taught to us now, because when integration came in, They closed all the black high schools, junior high
Absolutely.
schools. They fired the teachers and principals.
Closed the high schools, made them junior high.
schools, right. Shipped the kids off to white high schools. Now you have white teachers, white coaches, and
Looked at them differently, taught them
them
differently,
right.
didn't really appreciate some of their cultural
So now we don't. So
nuances
now we don't have a return value of where the black
Exactly.
teachers came from HBCUs and
Exactly.
going to these kids. So how do we
You
get
lost
back?
your head
Head
coaches,
right?
you lost your principals because they became assistants. Many of them went down to the junior high. So again, it's that circle of approach.
So how do we get back to these high school kids? Because the top 300 what was I looked at? Top 300 football players in the country, not one signed with HBCU. I don't even, me personally, I don't even think they even existed.
Right. When I looked
saying,
at the record that you were looking at, they didn't even have them listed as a school
a
of
school
interest.
entrance, that's what I'm saying.
So that's the first thing that you got to look at, which is a concern. But one of the first things you have to do is, again, you have to go to the base. And you have to understand that you're going to have to solve this on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a singular problem.
Right.
This is not just about you putting more money into your
Schools, right.
putting more money into your weight room. It's an educational, social component tied to this. There is a financial component tied to this. And there is a convergence, if you would, in a convenience in terms of that convergence of circumstances that you're going to have to really look at when you talk about solving this issue, and that is talking to these individuals and let them know all phases of it. There was a professor that did a study out of Penn that looked at these BCS programs and their graduation rate and did an excellent job of comparing this graduation rate between the cohorts of African American students and their European American students, both for men's and women's. And when you look at it, you see the graduation rate. So that's one of the first things, because any parent will tell you, while they often have dreams of going to the pros, usually what they go into it to an institution is saying they want their child to get an education.
Right.
But the problem is you have people that are really sucking them in and will even take the best sides, may have an interest of them graduate, but when all these things come together, they're not graduating. What I'm saying is you need to make sure you do your homework. And if you decide to go to a school, that you're going to one where it's just as likely as you going to the pro as you graduating.
But realistically, when they go into those programs, the coach is thinking about keeping his job, number one.
Right, and that's why I say you have to have a balance.
Right.
So you're going to have us talking about it on these platforms, disseminating this information. We have to have it in written form. We're going to have smaller groups that talk about this at the junior high level when students start to get the interest in regards to that, and tell them how to really look at institutions
right.
and not just look at this glimmer and and programs. You have to look at the whole dichotomy. So it has to be a change in the paradigm, if you would, shift from what has been taking place recently to what we need to go forward in the future.
But I mean, like you said, it's just so many problems.
It's hard. It's gonna be hard.
But we have to start somewhere. We got to start somewhere. So where do we go into these high schools and start getting, because I'm a firm believer, sports might not be your money maker, but it's a great marketing tool for your institution. And a prime example I always use is University of Miami. You know, back in the 70s, they only had like 2,500 students.
Right.
And then when Howard Schellenberger came in and built up their program, then they got like 30 or 40,000 students. You know, so even though your program might not make millions of dollars, but on the back end, when you're getting these students coming in for enrollment, you know, it's tenfold.
Right.
You know, but do you think our college presidents or HBCU presidents are thinking in that manner, or do they thinking it's just a money pit? And we just
I think most of them understand that there are some positives to athletics, and they support that. But when you really get to a presidential level, to be honest, there's so many issues on their plate. Many of them are fighting legislators, especially throughout the South, to make sure they get the bottom funding to stay open as an institution. So I don't like to put this issue on one individual. I think all of us could do better. I'll say that frankly.
Right.
Those in leadership positions, those outside of that are representing districts, that are working with these legislators to make sure, us as researchers, making sure that we doing our research such that the presidents can get the information to go back to their legislative districts. Those that are out there voting, to make sure they're voting to put people that have their interests in there.
Right.
Those that are doing the media, to make sure they tell the whole story,
Right.
counterbalance the negative stories that are out there. So it's a multi-level platform, and it's hard for me just to focus on one group.
Right.
I will say that the presidents always can do a better job, but I'm not gonna put this just on the back of the presidents or the coaches when I know that a lot of them are doing a lot of work. Now, we do have bad apples in all these barrels
That's
that are
everybody.
just
Yeah, that's
taking money,
everybody.
but you have that everywhere
Yeah.
through all ethnicities, to all groups of life that are in it just for the money.
Right.
But I'd rather not focus on
On
that
that,
group,
right.
because everybody else is focused on that group. I wanna focus on the ones that really have a plan to try to take this to the next level and see where I can get on board and hopefully have a voice and say that I have something worth them listening to, which is also difficult because they have a lot of people coming after them. And a lot of people oftentimes sound very good, and they're very good at saying what should
Should be
be
said.
said, but are not really saying anything.
Anything, right.
So they gotta work through all that.
Tell us a little bit about your business. I want to get that out there so people know exactly what you do.
Thank you. I do a THG consulting business
Okay.
that looks at really going into particularly HBCUs and look at data mining, getting the information, really making what we call strategic decisions and moving forward in terms of generating more money. We started on the marketing side, much of what you did now, and now I want to go even a little deeper in terms of really understanding what that component of marketing is, and that's really getting the data, doing research to support that. I also have a side of the business where we do some media reviews and do a top 10 poll ranking. We do
Okay.
it for football. We do it uniquely separate to some of the polls that are out there that historically have done it a great job for a long time, but we thought it was a time to kind of move in a different direction.
Right.
When you break down the scholarship limits of NCAA, FCS programs, formerly 1AA programs, that offer that 63 scholarship limit versus Division II and NAIAs that had 36 and 24 respectively. So we separate the poll to honor that difference, even though some people believe it's closer than not. But we decided to look at it uniquely and create a major division where we look at schools in the SWAC, MEAC, including Tennessee State, and then we do a mid-major division where we look at SIAC, CIAA, and in basketball, the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, and some of those Division II and independent NAIA Division I programs in terms of what they're doing. We do this for the sport of football. We do it for basketball, men's and women's, so I'm excited about what's taking place in terms of the SWAC tournament and where we will go in terms of naming our champion for the year, looking at all these schools, and we also do it for baseball.
Right. I really appreciate your time. And why don't you go ahead and give us your website, phone number, or any information
Thank
that people can get in touch with you about.
I'm Dr. Cavil. You can get my information. Email me directly at kcavil, thg-agency.com, KCAVIL at thg-agency.com. You can follow me on the social media platforms of Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook. That's Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, DrKenyetta Cavil. Again, it's DrKenyetta Cavil. And I give a lot of credit to my students at Texas Southern University because they're the one that made them happen and told me it's very important that I understood the social media platforms. My polls on the Houston Roundball Review, that's www.thrr.com. And then on the football season, we're at the collegesportingnews.com, where articles come out with the polls telling you what to watch out for players. We do an All-American team. So we spread the gamut of trying to make sure information is out there in regards to black college sports. Now I've entered the frame where I also do some sports analysts and reports on various radio stations just to keep people up to date.
So
They
we're
want
going
to
to see you on ESPN pretty soon?
If they come calling, I'm ready. I don't know if they want to.
Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, TSU and a Purdue grad.
That's right.
And this is William Sparrow from the College Hour. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, Real answers, right now.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Danse, balance, suis la cadence. Ondule bien.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Thank you for calling your GED Pep Talk Center. All right, now, are you ready for your GED Pep Talk?
Being nervous is okay. It just shows that you're serious about getting your diploma.
A lot of things are scary. Heck, I'm scared of clowns.
No quiero oír. Danny, no lo puedo hacer.
DMC, life in your pep talk style.
Just keeping it real, Debs, just keeping it real.
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you were really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.